So, what truly defines wild? When we think about wilderness, do we, limit it just to forests and untamed landscapes? Or could that same spirit, that adaptability, that survival instinct, could it maybe find a home even inside the most structured places we build like our cities? Welcome to this deep dive.
Yeah, today we're heading into a really fascinating corner of tabletop RPGs, specifically D&D 5th edition. We're going to explore the whole concept of the Urban Ranger, and we'll be pulling insights from the Complete Urban Ranger Guide for D&D 5e in 2025 article you can find over at LitRPG Reads. It's a pretty compelling idea. It sort of flips the traditional ranger archetype right on its head. You trade the forests for, well, the concrete jungle.
It's funny you mentioned that. Just a few weeks back, in a D&D game I was running, one of my players actually built an urban ranger. We were in this sprawling city setting, deep into a mystery plot. And honestly, the way they tackle problems using these urbanized ranger skills, it was just, well, eye-opening. Like, instead of tracking a beast through the woods, they were reading the patterns of, like, discarded junk in an alleyway to figure out where their target went. It really showed the surprising depth this kind of character can have.
That's a perfect illustration, really, of why this concept grabs people. And that LitRPG Reads article, that's our main guide for this exploration. It goes into the mechanics, the flavorful descriptions that make the Urban Ranger feel real, and the background options that really help the archetype work. So our mission today for this deep dive is to get a handle on how that core Ranger identity, the adaptability, the connection to the environment, how that can be successfully reimagined for a city, and why it's such a compelling idea for players and DMs.
Okay, so the article kicks off by looking at those fundamental ranger abilities.
Right.
Favored terrain, natural explorer. How do those even work in a city? It's obviously not about knowing the best path through the woods anymore.
Exactly. You have to think about what those abilities mean at their core. It's about an innate understanding of a specific environment, right? A set of advantages you have within it. Now just apply that to a city. So instead of a forest, maybe your favored terrain is a specific district known for its maze-like alleys. Or maybe it's the sewer system underneath the streets, which can be pretty treacherous. Or even the rooftops, always shifting. It changes the ranger's role fundamentally. They're not just a guide anymore. They're tied into the city's social and physical web, key players in understanding its hidden workings.
Right, and Natural Explorer isn't about navigating the wilds. It's about knowing these urban places intimately. The article has these great examples, like being able to read graffiti, not just as vandalism, but as, gang signs marking territory. Or having a mental map of all the secret ways in and out of smuggler dens. Or knowing the quickest, quietest routes through the sewers. It's like the city itself is this living wilderness the ranger just gets.
And then you connect that to favorite enemy, that also gets a distinctly urban twist. You're not usually tracking, say, owl bears. Your threats are more specific to city life. Think rival gangs fighting for turf, or maybe corrupt officials pulling strings behind the scenes. Maybe it's street mages doing illicit magic in the shadows, or even just navigating the nightmare of city bureaucracy. It's less about hunting a monster and more about understanding the city's intricate social ecosystem and identifying its, predators.
Yeah, it makes you think differently about how an urban ranger would even deal with these enemies. The article mentions it's about reading the room, but on a city-wide scale almost. Being able to spot the tiny clues that mark someone as part of a certain faction, predicting moves based on whispers and public actions, maybe even spotting a spy by how they act or the coded words they use. It's a real shift from just hunter to a keen observer of urban dynamics.
What's also really neat is how the article talks about this idea of urban alchemy for spells and class features. Taking the basic intent of an ability and thinking, okay, how does this look in a city? Take Hunter's Mark. In the wild, you mark a creature. In the city, maybe it's the uncanny knack for picking one face out of a huge crowd and just remembering it. Or maybe subtly marking a suspect with, chalk dust so you can spot them later without them knowing. Detect magic isn't just sensing auras, it's like arcane surveillance. Noticing the faint magic residue on a doorknob or spotting the enchantment woven into a document.
Even fighting styles get that city spin. Dueling. Maybe that's deadly knife work in a tight alley. Archery becomes silently throwing daggers from a roofside. And two-weapon fighting might be, the less savory combo of a sap and a shiv for taking someone down quickly in close quarters.
And this adaptability flows right into the ranger subclasses. The article gives some really strong examples. Imagine a beastmaster, but their companion isn't a wolf, it's a flock of messenger pigeons trained to carry intel across the city. Or a hunter who doesn't set snares in the woods, but uses everyday city stuff, a tripwire in a dark alley, a loose pile of bricks to make clever urban traps. It really pushes you to think creatively about how each core ranger idea fits into this concrete jungle setting.
Okay, speaking of getting around in this concrete jungle, the article spends a good bit of time on urban tracking and surveillance. That feels like a totally different beast compared to, following tracks in the mud.
Hmm. Yeah, the key thing is the shift in what you're looking for. Obvious footprints get lost in the crowds, right? Signs of passage aren't broken twigs, but maybe a discarded coded note or a tiny stuff mark on a specific doorframe. So the ranger learns to read like the rhythmic churn of crowds, understanding how people move in different areas at different times, or they trace a suspect's path by the kinds of places they visit, a certain tea shop, a known fences den. The trail is sort of woven into the city's daily life.
The article really stresses how skills beyond just survival become critical. Investigation, obviously, for piecing together clues. Insight, for reading people in that complex social scene. Even deception, for blending in or planting misinformation. It mentions stuff like comparing handwriting on anonymous notes, spotting forged documents, or catching those subtle nonverbal cues between criminals in a busy tavern.
And you see those classic rogue-type skills becoming really relevant for the urban ranger, too. Thieves' tools proficiency isn't just opening chests. It could be disabling the magical wards on a noble's vault. Forgery. Invaluable for getting past guards, or maybe planting false leads. Even cartography shifts from mapping forests to charting hidden tunnels or secret passages under the city. It paints this picture of a ranger who's both super observant and incredibly resourceful in this specific environment.
That list of urban tracking techniques in the article is just gold for inspiration. It really gives you a feel for it. Stuff like tailing someone discreetly through a packed market, learning to read gang graffiti, knowing the guard patrol timings, even following the faint scent of a specific spice to find a hidden kitchen operation.
Exactly. And you can see how these techniques mix the ranger's natural attention to detail with a deep understanding of city life. Picking up useful bits from overheard conversations in a loud tavern, watching for specific hand signals used by street gangs, maybe using detect magic to trace the lingering energy of a spell cast somewhere hidden. It's all about turning the city's sensory overload into usable intel.
It even covers using messenger animals for recon, like sending a trained bird to scout ahead. And those shadier skills like using disguises to fit into different social circles or checking pawn shops for stolen goods connected to a case. It really drives home how deeply embedded an urban ranger can become in the city's information network.
And a really crucial point the article makes is that good urban tracking is often collaborative. It's between the player and the DM. It encourages players to get creative with their skills, clearly state what they're trying to do, and remember that the city itself is just full of information, some hidden, some right out in the open.
Okay, but what about the animal companion? That's such a core ranger thing. How does that work in a city? You can't exactly have a wolf trotting alongside you down Main Street.
Right, that's where the idea of a companion gets broader. A bear might stand out a bit, yeah. But cities have their own ecosystems, their own creatures. Think about pigeons maybe trained to carry messages reliably, or those sleek black cats that just vanish into shadows, perfect for observing unseen. Or even rats, surprisingly smart creatures that know the city's underside and might notice things others miss.
The article even brings up familiars and magical pets taking on urban forms. That image of a pseudo-dragon nesting in an old church bell tower, that's brilliant. Or blink dogs phasing in and out of dark alleys.
And that list of urban beast companions and tamed monsters really gets the ideas flowing. Gutter rats with unusual intelligence may be able to follow simple commands. Messenger pigeons trained for stealthy deliveries. Those pseudo-dragons finding niches in forgotten city corners. Blink dogs offering their teleport tricks for scouting or quick escapes. Even feral cats acting as silent watchers in their territory.
It really shows the story potential, doesn't it? Like, what secrets has that ordinary-looking sewer rat seen? What coded message could a trained alley cat bring you? They're not just for fighting. They become info sources, spies, couriers, even distractions when you need them.
And the article smartly suggests maybe reskinning traditional Beastmaster companions, like a mimic that looks just like a discarded lockbox, or maybe tiny clockwork toys that act like animal companions. It opens up a lot of room for really creative thematic choices.
Okay, shifting gears from companions to more dangerous stuff. How does the urban ranger handle traps and the whole idea of urban dungeons?
Well, the main difference with urban dungeons is where they are. They're not usually ancient ruins out in the middle of nowhere. They're hidden inside the city, secret cellars under shops, sealed off wings of mansions, abandoned subway tunnels, maybe the confusing layout of a guild headquarters. In these tight, often trapped spaces, the ranger's ability to just sense danger becomes absolutely vital.
Yeah, the article talked about how ambushes and controlling territory feel different in the city. It's about scouting buildings before you go in, understanding the security in a merchant guild's vault, or maybe navigating trapped crypts under an old city graveyard.
And that ranger knack for noticing small things, a faint chemical smell hinting at a gas trap, a slightly loose floor tile over a pressure plate, the almost invisible shimmer of a magic ward on a door that becomes a critical survival tool in these close quarters, often dangerous urban spots.
I like the examples of trap mastery the article gave too, like rigging an empty bottle with alchemist's fire as a quick alarm or deterrent, leaving subtle chalk marks to show which paths are unsafe, or strategically scattering caltrops in an alley during a chase. It's about using the city itself as your weapon or defense.
Exactly. And the urban traps and countermeasures list has some great inspiration. Collapsing stairs rigged to give way, doorknobs coated with contact poison or set with a magic glyph, hidden vents ready to pump out sleeping gas, crossbows hidden in walls, magical alarm runes placed in sneaky spots. The potential threats are surprisingly varied and fit the urban scene perfectly.
The article really does a good job showing how urban traps are this imaginative thing between the ranger player and the DM. How you design them, how you spot them, how you bypass them. It's about turning everyday city features into real challenges and strategic tools.
Now let's talk subclasses. How do the different official D&D Ranger subclasses map onto this urban idea? Some seem like they'd fit right in, others maybe need a bit more creative tweaking.
Well, the Gloomstalker seems like a no-brainer, right? All about darkness and stealth. Perfect for those shadowy alleys, rooftops, the city's underbelly. And the Monster Slayer, hunting down dangerous things. Well, cities have plenty of monsters, whether they're crime lords or something more supernatural.
Absolutely. And the Fey Wanderer, with their social skills and that touch of Fey charm. They could be brilliant at navigating the complex social webs of a city, dealing with nobles one minute and underworld contacts the next. Their ability to charm and influence would be super useful.
What about the ones that feel more wildernessy? The article had some cool ideas there too, like the Swarm Keeper. Maybe their form isn't nature spirits, but an actual swarm of city rats they command. And the Horizon Walker, dealing with planar portals in the wild. Maybe in the city, they track unstable magic rifts opening up in the sewers or old ruins.
Precisely. It's about finding that urban parallel for their core theme. And like the article notes, there's also potential with third-party or homebrew subclasses. Maybe ones focused specifically on investigation or trickery or heightened urban senses, things that would be incredibly useful for a city-based ranger.
That table in the article, breaking down subclass adaptations, super helpful. It gives concrete ideas for urbanizing each one, points out a key feature for city play, and even throws in a campaign hook. Really gets you thinking about the possibilities.
Okay, so moving towards actually building one of these rangers, the article gets practical, talking about good multi-class options, useful feats, and the right backgrounds.
It points towards Rogue and Bard as potentially strong multi-class choices. Rogue gives you more skills, cunning action for moving around the city. Bard gives you social skills, maybe some extra magic helpful for gathering info or getting out of jams.
And for feats, observant and alert make obvious sense better perception, avoiding ambushes in dangerous city streets. Skulker helps with stealth in dim light, which cities have plenty of. Even telepathic could be useful for silent communication or picking up surface thoughts in a crowd.
Background-wise, Urchin jumps out, immediately gives you that street knowledge, contacts, but even Noble could work, giving you access to high society info networks. Or a faction agent, tying you directly into the city's secret groups and power players.
And the essential skills list just reinforces everything we've discussed. Investigation for mysteries, insight for social stuff, stealth and perception are always key, plus those city-specific tools like thieves' tools, disguise kits, maybe forgery kits.
The spell and equipment suggestions also lean heavily into infiltration and information. Pass without trace, invisibility for moving unseen, detect magic, comprehend languages for finding secrets, charm person for those tricky social moments.
And gear-wise, yeah, a short bow and daggers are still handy, but think about caltrops, smoke bombs for escapes or distractions, and definitely a crowbar. You never know when you'll need to pry something open in the city.
The article even throws out some urban-optimized ranger build ideas to spark creativity. Concepts like a bounty stalker tracking magical marks through the city, a sewer scout who basically lives underground, or a magical snitch gathering arcane intel.
Finally, the article really brings it home by showing the urban ranger in action, the kinds of situations where these unique skills just shine.
Think about complex mysteries unfolding in dark alleys, fast-paced chases over rooftops or through crowded markets, or those tense social standoffs that need investigation skills and maybe a quick dagger. The article suggests campaign arcs like smuggling wars, investigating city cults, pulling off heists, or navigating political chaos, all perfect stages for an urban ranger.
And it gives concrete examples of them using their skills, tailing a suspect through a festival without being seen, casing a heavily guarded manor, disarming some alchemical bomb in a hidden lab, maybe even brokering peace between rival gangs using their knowledge of the city's power structure and its unusual inhabitants.
That table with adventure names and the ranger's role, it really pulls it all together. It shows how an urban ranger can be right at the center of all sorts of city adventures, from hunting a masked thief to checking out weird magic surges down by the docks.
So yeah, when you boil it all down, the main takeaway is that the Urban Ranger is just a brilliant example of how adaptable and imaginative D&D 5e can be. It gives you this fresh look at a classic archetype by really leaning into the unique kind of wildness you find only in cities, a wilderness of concrete, secrets, and social maneuvering.
It really does make you wonder, though, thinking about how well the ranger adapts. What other traditional fantasy archetypes could you maybe reimagine in unexpected, urban, or even modern settings, and what kind of new stories could they tell?
Absolutely. And on that note, we definitely want to give a big shout out to LitRPG Reads, and specifically to Paul Bellows. Seems like a fine fill for putting together such a thorough and frankly inspiring guide on this urban ranger concept.
We genuinely love to hear what you think about all this. Head on down to the comment section below and share your ideas. What kind of urban ranger concepts jump out at you? Or maybe you've got some other wild ideas for urban adaptations of classic D&D classes. We're always curious to see what you all come up with.